What did we learn from the Buccaneers win over the Commanders? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome into this WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at EKloskyWTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am the editor-in-chief of the 813.TV. Evan is, of course, on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. The show is here with you every Monday through Friday along with the Everydayers. For that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Buccaneers make a smart roster move to help out a beaten and battered secondary, and we see what Evan's crystal ball says about week 2 coming up in a little bit. But let's start things off by putting a nice, tidy bow on the win against the Washington Commanders. And Evan, there was certainly a lot to like about the Buccaneers' performance. There were also some things that we didn't like as much, but taking a look at this game as a whole, what are kind of your biggest takeaways from what you saw?
First takeaway, I was bullish on the offense entering the season, and I'm continuing to double down on that. Man, I think the Commanders' secondary stinks. I think that they're not going to be a very good team this season. So I certainly am not going to run away with any narratives about the Buccaneers pulverizing that unit, even though they have some really good pieces. But I think, as we mentioned in last week's episode, they looked like a team that entered the transfer portal, brought in all this talent. It's just going to take some time for them. And the Buccaneers took advantage of that. The Commanders went heavy man-to-man, and I don't know how many times you need to watch Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, the addition of Jalen McMillan and having Rachaad White, but man-to-man is not a strategy against the Buccaneers. And as we'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, but the Detroit Lions, who just played the Rams, they went a lot of man-to-man. So that, to me, is a huge win for Tampa Bay, for the offense, how they looked, the way that Baker Mayfield handled the amount of blitzes that came his way. I think historically speaking, he's always done really well at that. You know, I don't know how often he can wiggle out of some of those scenarios that he did, but man, did he look good. The tape was just as good as the first watch of Baker Mayfield. I am very impressed with what he did in that matchup, especially in a week across the NFL where quarterback play was honestly terrible. It was woof. So that was really good to see. I will say it was an up and down performance from the offensive line. There were a handful of clips that I can show you and be like, look at this. That's what we love to see. That's amazing. Created some explosives, whatever it might be. And then there were a handful of clips where I was just like, yuck. Especially, the pass pro overall felt really strong. The rushing game is where I felt they were up and down, which I think we know it's going to be a work in progress. But the fact that we're seeing some positives with the negatives is definitely good. And the best part about it is Graham Barton wasn't overpowered in the trenches. He just looked like somebody who needs reps and game experience. Center is still a fairly new position for him. So I think he's learning a little bit on the fly. This is a unit that's going to get better as the season goes on in that respect. But I do have to be honest, it was pretty up and down in many regards in the trenches. And then defensively speaking, for the amount of injuries they had, I thought they did a pretty good job. I also thought Jaden Daniels, while he was amazing with his legs and a little disappointed with how the Bucs decided to contain him, or lack thereof, just decided, screw the spying. We're not going to do that no more. I still thought there were probably some plays to be had against the Buccaneers defense that a more veteran quarterback, let's say a Jared Goff who's been in the league for a while, might be able to take advantage of. So they got the job done. They gave up a garbage touchdown there at the end. It was a lot better than what the final statistics even looked like, giving up 299 yards. But I do think that the film was a little less kind in some regards, defensively speaking, than what maybe the statistics look like. And I do have to add, though, shout out to Christian Ezien for playing cornerback, first time since sophomore year of high school doing that. And also shout out to Vita Vea. This man is going to be depended on with so many injuries in the trenches. He's a beast. Like, I don't know what his stats were in the game. I don't care. I'm watching a tape, and he's getting double teamed. He's blowing things up. And Jaden Daniels was rattled by the interior pressure coming from Vita. You know that it was in his head. So I was very impressed with Vita, what he was doing. I was also impressed with the splashes that I saw from Yaya and JTS at times, even though I think Joe Tryon-Schlenka didn't contain as well as I would have liked him on some plays. But he flashed, and we'll take that.
Yeah, and that's something that David and I talked on this show about for years and years and years, was that Vita Vea is not always going to show up on the stat sheet. In fact, I don't think he had a single tackle. I could be wrong, but if he did, it was maybe one or two. He's not going to always show up on the stat sheet, but he is still going to impact games, and he's going to have big impacts.
Yeah, 2 tackles.
Games. 2 tackles, yeah. So, I mean,
I don't remember one tackle for a loss.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing his name called at all on the broadcast during that game. And then to your point about the offensive line, I was listening to one of the listeners messaged me and said, hey, you should check out what they said about the Falcons-Steelers game on Chris Long's podcast. So I did. I listened to it. And then I wanted to listen to what they said about the Bucs and Commanders game. And former Buccaneer Bo Allen was on the show talking about the game. And of course, heaping praise upon Mike Evans, argued with one of the other guys on the show about whether or not Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. But he pointed out Graham Barton, and
we're still doing that these days.
Oh yeah. Apparently that's still a thing. But he pointed out Graham Barton and said, he liked a lot of what he saw, but he looked like a rookie. And that's directly to your point. The guy needs more real live reps. There's only so much that you're going to get from preseason. I know I've talked a lot on this show about how he's better prepared than most, having to go up against Vita Vea every day, but you cannot replicate game reps in practice situations. So you're right. Overall, Graham Barton looked pretty good. I don't remember him just getting absolutely beat outright. Cody Mauch had that problem a couple of times, but
yeah, Cody Mauch had some rough snaps. He also had some great snaps. Graham Barton had some great snaps. Graham Barton had some rough snaps, and it is a little bit tough for Barton. I want to mention he went up against Bobby Wagner, who has been around the block a while, future Hall of Famer, and there was just some times where he tried to get to the second level against him, and Bobby was a step ahead of him, which I think that he's going to do that to you. So whatever. But yeah, like the bones of what I saw was really good. I will say an observation. The Bucs ran. So with Baker under center, the Bucs ran it 13 out of 15 times with Rachaad White back there. And when Bucky was back there, I think it was 8 of 9 times were under center. So if I'm the Lions next week, I'm saying if I see Baker under center, I'm probably going to sell out on the run. And the 3 or 4 splash plays they want to have with play action, we'll give that to them. Now, was Liam Cohen setting us up for a change up next week? I don't know. I'm just saying that they were very heavy on under center, we're going to run. In shotgun, Rachaad White, 5 of his 6 receptions came right next to Baker in shotgun. So I just want to know, is this setting up next week, or is this going to be a tell that everyone's going to be like, I know it's coming? So we'll see on that front. But that's just that was just an observation I noticed as well.
Yeah, only 4 play action passes for Baker on Sunday. And for reference, and this is something I mentioned on yesterday's episode, moving forward, this may be kind of how the offense is. Sunday, this is kind of stems from the Rams offense. Well, Sunday night against the Lions, Stafford had 51 dropbacks, only 7 play action passes. So that is not something that we may see very often moving forward. The Buccaneers bring back a familiar face. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. The Buccaneers are 7-point road underdogs in Detroit this weekend with an over-under of 51.5 and have somehow fallen behind the Saints at plus 210 to win the NFC South. But if you want to get in on the early action, the Dolphins are 1.5-point home favorites against the Buffalo Bills with a 48.5-point over-under on Thursday night. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or review every day. The new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the Madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On Tuesday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed cornerback Keenan Isaac as they are dealing with tons of injuries in the secondary. And Evan, I have to believe that he is going to be suited up and active for Sunday's game in Detroit. But this is a Lions team that did not play a great offensive game against the Rams. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a really quiet night. I'm very confident that he and Jared Goff are going to try to make up for that this week. But then Jameson Williams appears to be becoming a viable threat. He's had kind of a roller coaster of a career so far. Sam Laporta, one of the best tight ends in football, maybe the best running back duo in all of football, especially as pass catchers out of the backfield. But how does the Bucs defense slow down an offense that we know can put up a lot of points in a hurry when they're dealing with so many key injuries, especially in the secondary?
So at least with the injuries in the trenches, even with that, when you get Greg Gaines and Will Golston and Mike Green, those guys added into the mix, I don't think that the run defense is compromised as much. I'm certainly more concerned with the secondary. I would imagine, if I were the Lions, I would not be as heavy into the rushing attack as just flinging the ball around the yard. Just looking at the personnel that's out there. Now, we don't know what's up with Josh Hayes or Zion McCollum, right? We'll find out more as the week's going on. And by, Wednesday, Thursday, certainly have a good beat on everything. We certainly don't know the extent of Logan Hall's injury. And obviously we know that Antoine's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks. So I don't know if Isaac will certainly be playing. It's likely that he would be suiting up, But Funderburk would, I would assume, be ahead of him, considering he made the team and Isaac didn't. So I think that's into the equation. I know that Todd Bowles has already said that Christian Izien probably has to move over to safety. You wonder if maybe you want to keep him into some cornerback snaps and move Merriweather to safety if that's a more comfortable duo for you. I don't know. My assumption is if you're Todd Bowles, and what I would do is if I was Todd Bowles, I'm obviously going to play a lot of zone, and I'm probably just going to bleed yards. This is a game where I'm not going to give Bowles too much crap for it. I have a feeling it's going to look not as bad with the concepts of what happened in Houston. But I think that what you got to do against Detroit is let them march down the field, burn some time. Hey, first down, whatever. Go pick up your yards, keep picking it up. When you get in the red zone, I'm going to have the best red zone package against you. And I'm going to try to hold your butts to a field goal. I think that's the way to win this game. Don't worry about bleeding yards and giving up 350 some odd yards to the Lions. It's what do you do within the 20? What do you do in the red area? And you need to be locked in the red zone and go to your offense and say, score points. We need you. We need you right now. So go out there, be aggressive, and get the ball into the end zone. We'll hold in the 3. We'll do what we can. We need you guys to get 7. So, and you just hope within the game you're going to need a little turnover luck. Tell my guys, hey, I'd rather you be forcing a fumble out and giving them an extra few yards than tackling it. Like, take the risk. Today, like this game, take the risk. So that's probably not what everyone's going to love to hear because you're going to watch the game Sunday and you're going to rip your hair out watching the Lions just march down the field. But I just don't know what other choice Todd Bowles has. And I just think if you get uber aggressive and you put your pieces on an island, you're just going to get ruined. So maybe there's a little part of, like all I think back is to that receiver series on Netflix and Amon-Ra saying like Jamel Dean has some long arms. Like it is startling how good he was. And he was so great in that Detroit playoff game before getting hurt. So Dean's going to have to step up, hopefully put the clamps down on Amon-Ra. And then Levante's got to do work against Laporta. Laporta really kind of owned the Bucs in that playoff game, if I remember correctly.
He did.
But David did a great job against Laporta, if I remember correctly, again, in that regular season matchup. So if David's on Laporta duty and Dean is on Amon-Ra duty, then you figure that's a pretty good start, and then everybody needs to chip in and handle the run. So that's the overarching theme there. That's how I would probably play it is I don't care about giving up yards, but you cannot get in the end zone.
That's not the worst strategy I've ever heard, honestly. And, if you're talking about, let them kind of move up and down the field, but clamping down, you give up field goals all day long. We saw Pittsburgh, they won with what they have, like 6 field goals or whatever it is. But, that also doesn't put the pressure on the Bucs to have to keep pace. You can give up 2 field goal drives for every 1 touchdown drive that you have. So, it alleviates a little bit of the pressure, lets the offense play a little more freely. I cannot wait to see how Baker and Mike Evans attack Carlton Davis. Real quick, over under 1.5 defensive pass interference calls on Carlton Davis trying to defend Mike Evans.
I'll go under, only 1.
I
don't know if Carlton's going to go up against Mike all day. I don't know if he's going to get shadowed like that. I'm sure Carlton's going to be locked in. It's going to be certainly a motivating game for him. It's going to go one of 2 ways with Carlton. He's either going to lock you down, or I mentioned that Texans game. It could get ugly.
You say, or he'll be overly aggressive, trying to make plays, and it'll bite him in the butt. But no, I don't hate that strategy, Evan Klosky. That's actually pretty solid. Like you said, Bucs fans are going to be ripping their hair out watching it unfold. But if they have to settle for 3 instead of getting 6, that could be a way that the Bucs steal one in Detroit. The crystal ball comes out. It was a little foggy last week. It's polished up and it's ready to go. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, brakes, rotors, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Remove all of the stress of shopping for parts for your vehicle, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs podcast. And Evan Klosky, bring out that crystal ball. It is that time. You went 1 for 3 last week.
Yeah.
You know, last year, I don't remember specifically how you did week to week, other than overall, you were pretty good over the course of the year.
I had a good run at one point.
You did. But week ones are always the toughest, especially when we don't see much in preseason. You don't know how things are going to get rolling. So week one's always the toughest. I'm not going to hold it against you.
Hey, I'm always okay with losing a bold prediction. It was just a score prediction was way too low. But I did nail Chris Godwin as player of the game.
Yeah, well, let's see if you can go 2 for 2 in that category. And let's start things off with your predictive player of the game.
Player of the game. There are going to be 2 names out here. But the main one that I'm going to go with is Rachaad White. I think that Rachaad is going to be utilized as a dump down option for a good portion of this game. I think they caught wind of that a little bit last year in the playoff matchup. Found some success with him. I believe he had 5 receptions. I know he had that touchdown on that beautiful third down call from Dave Canales in that contest when the Lions blitzed, and it was just easy peasy. I think that they'll have opportunities with him as a pass catcher, and hopefully maybe some added lanes open up. But I'm going to say, what did he have last week? So last week, total yards, Rachaad White, I know he had 75. He had 31 rushing, 75 receiving. That's 106. I'll say that I'll give him 115, 120 total yards in this game. He'll go north of that, and again, he'll have a stellar performance as a pass catcher. The other side I want to give just a little caveat to is KJ Britt. KJ Britt, I didn't like his tape this past week. Not a good matchup for him, though. Jaden Daniels, very athletic, very mobile. That's not KJ Britt's style. KJ Britt's style is old school. I'm going to fit my run gaps, and I'm going to hammer you at the line. And the Lions are a little bit of an old school team. So they want to run the ball a lot. And I thought one of KJ's best games last year was against Detroit. So I believe that is a matchup I really like for KJ Britt. I think for a team that wants to establish its physical play, KJ Britt can really step up and say, I'm ready to go to war. Like, I'm going to keep punching you in the mouth. So I think KJ Britt's going to have a lot better of a week this week, where we saw a bunch of Servassier Dennis last week. I think you probably see a little bit less of Servassier until we get to obvious passing down situations, or if the Bucs are leading and the Lions are in a negative game script, you'll see more Servassier Dennis. Bold prediction, kind of gave it away. No red zone touchdowns. That's my bold prediction.
All right.
A lot of field goals.
And hopefully not so much of the Jamison Williams explosive touchdowns like we saw against the Rams, because that would be my biggest concern. You know, Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, but I don't know, especially as banged up as the Bucs are, I don't know if they have the speed to deal with Jamison Williams in this game. So that would be my big worry. At this point, I'm lining up Christian Izien as like the center fielder. Like, hey, make sure this dude doesn't get past you at any point in this game, because that's going to be.
You got to limit the explosives, right? I mean, that go like, you know, playing offense versus defense. I mean, I'm literally talking about playing defense, but yeah, I usually hate this Todd Bowles game plan because sometimes he does it when he has the pieces, but yeah, I do think you have to play a bit conservatively here and bleed the yards.
All right. Well, the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the 1-0 Detroit Lions. This is the third time these teams have played each other in the last 11 calendar months, which is insane. Lions won the first one 20-6. They won the playoff matchup 31-23. Evan Klosky is third time the charm for the Buccaneers.
I would have really, really loved to have seen the Buccaneers play the Lions fully healthy, full go, because I want to pick the Bucs in this game. I really do. But I just cannot get over the fact that they are completely decimated on the defensive side of the football, completely decimated in the trenches, completely decimated in the secondary. And that has to weigh on you at some point. There are going to be mistakes made, especially against a team that's a Super Bowl caliber contender like the Lions. So I know that Bowles and company are going to have a great game plan. I know that they've been studying this game throughout the entire offseason. They'll know what to do against the Lions, whether they can execute it or not. That's going to be a different story. I think it's still going to be the Buccaneers covering, but I am going to have the Bucs losing in this contest 30-27.
Yeah, I would say if I had to make a prediction right now today, and it's always tough on you. That's why I got to give you a little bit.
Yeah, I will. I'm not going to make an excuse because, but because I said what I said and I stuck with it. I actually, it's funny because I had I think 16-13 last week or 19-16. And then I went on the blitz and I said 23-20. So like as the week went on, I was feeling a little bit more of a higher score. That sometimes happens. Regardless, I didn't nail the Bucs offensive performance, so it's an L for me. But you are right. Sometimes I get to the end of the week and I'm like, this is kind of smelling a little bit different than what I thought. You know, because you hear from the players, you dig into some things, you learn injury reports, so on and so forth, and
exactly.
So yeah, but that's 30-27 is at least where I'm at for now.
Yeah, and I was on a Detroit sports talk radio station Monday night, and they asked me for a score prediction, and I'm like, we just got the Antoine news. Like, you are asking me 6 days out.
I am in a state of despair.
I won't make my score prediction until I go live on YouTube Friday afternoon for the final preview episode. So I'm going to have that information. I'll know if Zion is back, or at least have a better idea. I'll know if Kancey or Logan Hall are playing. So I always kind of put you in a tough position here on as we record on Tuesday nights for WTSP Wednesday to have to do all that before the injury reports. So, I think we'll have to go back to before my Friday show. I'm going to text you and give you the opportunity to pivot from your score prediction.
That's fair.
So it's the most fair that I can be on this show.
And I just want to say very quickly, Antoine Winfield Jr. injury news. You think about that, and you think about how lucky this team is to have signed a guy like Jordan Whitehead in the offseason, because it is gonna mitigate some of, like, if you imagine last year without Antoine Winfield Jr. and then having like Ryan Neal in that role versus what they have now, I think they can weather some of the storm. But it's just it's not just Antoine. Like, that's the whole thing. If it was just Antoine, I can give you a whole spiel there. It's the fact that so many are out. I mean, potentially, if Zion comes back, right? If we got Zion and Josh Hayes, who to a greater degree, he's more of a special teams guy, an important one at that. But if Zion's playing in this game and healthy, I might have some different thoughts. But for now, I'm just going to assume that he's not playing until I see him on the practice field and see him giving a go. And we probably won't know about Zion until like Saturday, because typically with these concussion injuries, it takes like 6 days to get out of that protocol, at least based on my experience of tracking these players, that if they come back the next week, usually they're not given the okay until like Friday, Saturday.
Right. All right. Well, Evan, what do we have on tap over at 10 Tampa Bay and 10tampabay.com?
Well, I'm just going to say, you can go see your boy James Yarcho on the Blitz every Sundays, 8:30 in the morning, 10 Tampa Bay. But if you want to watch it on Saturdays, you can. Just go to 10 Tampa Bay Plus, download it wherever you watch your apps, or you can head to our YouTube page at 10tampabay.com. You can check out our full episode. We'll break it all down for you. I'm probably going to do a breakdown on Rachaad White's rushing game and why you shouldn't panic about the 2.1 yards per carry that he had. So, but that's the sort of stuff that we get into. We get into the nitty gritty. We'll get you set up for that Detroit Lions game coming up this weekend, and we bring that to you every week unless there's like a Thursday night football game or a bye week.
All right. So make sure you are checking out everything going on over at 10 Tampa Bay and 10tampabay.com. Check out everything that I'm doing over at the 813.tv. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JRCO_Bucs, at eCloskey, WTSP. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, or on your favorite podcast platform of choice. And become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.